My name is Doris Dupree-Harris. Serve St. John's Lutheran Church in Dallas, southeast Dallas. We're located in the southern sector between 45 and 35. I have been ordained now as of August for 29 years. And I graduated from the Lutheran Seminary of the Southwest when it had an MDiv program.
And how did you experience your call to ministry?
Wow, this is a real quick story. I got involved in the Lutheran Church in Dallas. It was an outreach ministry, developmental site. And from there, I got involved in doing lay ministry in the Bryan College Station area. And some things went on, and I kept saying that I need to have pastors down here. And as I spoke with the bishop at the time in that area, he kind of said, well, what about you? And I'm like looking around, trying to figure out who he's talking to, because ministry was not on my radar. My former life, I've been involved in education, specifically with children with special needs from birth to 3. But I think the experience for me is like, why do you keep fussing about what they need? How are you going to be part of the solution? And I didn't like hearing that, because I didn't want to be part of the solution in terms of being clergy or being a pastor. But God has a funny way of making sure you have to keep dealing with it. And as I kept working on what does it mean to be a pastor, because I hadn't been Lutheran that long, but there was something about the Lutheran Church and Lutheran theology that just was liberating to me. And I wanted others to experience that. So if I was going to be a vessel, if I was going to be an instrument of that, I guess that's what God called me to do. Okay.
And what is one of your greatest joys in your pastoral ministry?
When I see a young person have that aha moment, when everything kinds of in that person's life gels to say, this is what church is about. And I'm always pleasantly surprised at how they listen, and then they have that moment, and it's real clear to me. And no matter where they go after that, they had that moment as a foundation to come back to. Because in teaching, I really believe that no matter where you go, if you don't have a beginning, if you don't have a layer on which to hang on to, then you just wander. And when things go bad, you're out there almost all alone. But when you have that foundation of God in your life, when things go bad, then you hear your mother, your grandmothers, the elders reminding you. And that's when that moment comes to be, and you are able to cling to that. Yeah, you'll have the valley, but remember the mountaintop.
And what gives you hope for the church of today and the hope for the church of the future?
I think for the church today, that we are going into places we had thought we'd ever venture into. And as a person of color, I'm surprised and delighted to see the church is willing to venture into places where people of color live, work. And even though the Lutheran Church, Scandinavian, Germanic, whatever, the white church, has an opportunity to be authentic in its welcoming. Because I think to mandate to make something law does not mean everybody's going to follow it. So in 1988, when it was almost the law that we would have people of color be 10% or more, and yet we've never come close to that. In fact, we've declined from the numbers. But I also think that now, kind of what the kids say, we're going to be real about it. What does it mean to be an inclusive church? To have the diversities and all the diversities, not just people of color. Now we're dealing with other issues. We're dealing with, and especially in Texas, even though this is northern Texas, I still have to remember my brothers and sisters in the border areas. What does that mean to them? What does it mean to be a sanctuary church? What does it mean to be a safe church? What does it mean to be a welcoming church? So I think we're on the fringe of that in making it authentic, not just being lip service.
And let's talk about why an African American ministry is vital to us as Lutherans.
When I came to the church, I came basically as an educator. So the avenues and the committees and the way I entered was through education, teaching. So Sunday school was fun, vacation Bible school was fun. I enjoyed it as a lay person. But then as I really started to look at the theological aspects of it, there's so much hope and the gift we have to offer in terms of grace, peace, and love, and not just law. We have to have the law, that's a given. But what happens after the law? We know the rules, but what happens when we break the rules? And again, the grace of God is just such a loving experience for me that I just want to share it. I want to proclaim it. I want to shout it. I want other people to know that this is what the church can be, that there is grace. And to me, that's the heart of it. And people need to hear that over and over and again. God loves you. And
you mentioned being a teacher a couple of times, and can you talk more about how your work as a teacher prepared you for the work you do as a pastor?
I've been in special ed all my life, over 30 years. And one of the things that I learned early on in my educational career is that you take somebody where they are, whether a baby or a teenager or whatever. You don't try to change them to get to where you think they ought to be. You embrace them as where they are, and you go on a journey together. And again, I think I'm able to bring that to the church. I don't presume that people are, where they are in their Christian life without going on that journey, without hearing their story, without knowing their history. What did your family bring to you? And because as African American Lutherans, very few of us are born as Lutherans, so we have had a previous journey in other denominations, and I have to respect that. So what does that bring to the church? Because the church should be involving and inclusive. So the gifts that my AME family shared with me are a part of my childhood and a part of my being. I don't want to deny them. I want to embrace them and have them merged with how I understand Lutheranism.
And let's talk about how then being a woman in the midst of all of those dynamics then shapes and contributes your particular pastoral ministry.
Interesting question. For me as a person of color, the prevailing issue that I deal with is being a person of color, and being a woman is secondary, because I come from a family of strong women, creative women, who have broken a lot of barriers. So for them to be strong or being able to focus on their strengths, their gifts, and not just sit aside and wait for a man to do it. I've been equipped with the belief of I can do it. And my grandmother and my mother, kept that in me. I mean, they had educational levels they wanted me to achieve, and they didn't have a lot of forgiveness if I didn't achieve them. So to carry on that legacy, I tell everybody my grandmother was a maid in Mississippi with a college education. She had gone to school, but when she graduated, there were no teaching jobs available for women at that time. So she had to do what she had to do to provide for her family. So nothing is secondary for us. We try to achieve the best we can in wherever location we're chosen to be.